Hello guys, my name is Adrian and welcome to my channel. I'm trying here to create a game engine in order to be used for some future games. I'm using C++ and OpenGL. I didn't want to use an existing game engine. I wanted to write everything from scratch. So, this is the first video, and in it I will present the basic structure that I'm using mostly for my project. First, I'm using CLion. It's an IDE that I'm very familiar with it. If you want, you can use Visual Studio. Doesn't make a difference. You can use Visual Studio Code. Doesn't make a difference in the end. For me, personally, I will continue with CLion. I will have the link in the description for the repository that I will clone right now. So, I have also a GitHub account. There you'll have all the repositories, all the code that I'm using, and all that. So, on my second monitor, I will get a link to the repository. First, let's clone the repository. We will clone it, and we will try to put it on desktop. Okay, you can, of course, choose whatever place you want on your computer. I named the project Platforms Framework because mostly for a game engine in the beginning, you are working with the platforms part. What I mean by that, most of the time you need to have a window, you need to have input and things like that. And mostly, or most of the time, things like this, like window and input, are very platform specific. So you don't have a place where you, like on Windows, you are writing the code, and the code that you are writing in order to display a window, it will not work on Linux, for example. I know there are alternatives like GLFW, like SDL2, but those things are just something like a code on top of the platform specific code. We ourselves, we will try to create a similar, let's say, project where in this platform framework, this will work mostly like an example project that you can use, or at least I can reuse in the future. But in it, today, we will kind of specify the structure. So, we start with the platforms. We'll try to, in the next videos, to have a window that we will be able to draw OpenGL, let's say, OpenGL functions. We will be able to use OpenGL functions in it. We'll have the input, and later on, we will switch to a graphics framework when we'll get more into depth about things like textures, models, and all that stuff. Platforms framework, it will be on our GitHub page, okay? And how I will structure it, like almost every project, I like to have, for example, because like I told you, this is a CMake project. First, we need to create a CMake list file. First with CLion, but it's the same also in kind of every IDE. You need to load your, let's say, main root CMake. Some people are wondering, like, what is CMake? CMake is just, let's say, a build system similar with Make or Maven if you are coming from Java. So CMake, by writing some specific CMake code, let's call it this way, it will help you to generate some project. And you this is kind of working cross-platform. While I'm kind of creating the CMake project, and now, for example, I'm on Windows, this project behind the scenes, it will generate something like a Windows type of project. But if I'll go with the same code on Linux, it will generate a project that is very specific to Linux. Okay. So, of course, the main CMake file. After that, I like to create a folder called code, a folder called libraries, and a folder called modules. And sometimes I'm using one that is called resources. Okay, this is kind of the basic structure of the folders for my project mostly. In each of them, we will need to write or to add a CMake file. Okay. For the resources, it's not necessary because in the resources we'll have things like, for example, shaders. Okay, or you can have like models or textures. Okay, things like this. It's here you don't need to include them. You can add a CMake file and to do something like to copy a folder of shaders into the build folder when you are compiling your application and all that stuff. But in our case, in my case, it's not necessary. So most of the time, how do we work with it? Let's start with the explanation. Let's call it this way. Okay, so into my main file, this line I like to keep it, so you can skip it, not a problem. First, in any CMake project, you need to, if you didn't know, you need to specify a minimum required version. So for ourselves, it will be 3.30. Okay. Another important thing that you need to set, like not in every, let's say, CMake files, but you need to add something called project. And in our case, we will use something like platforms, framework. Okay. And in here, you can also have a version like 0.0.1. This is the first version of our platforms framework. Other than that, you can have add subdirectory, and here you can include the libraries. You can have another one which should include the modules, and another one at the end which should include the code. Like in all the three folders, libraries, modules, and code, we will add actually C++ code. But what is different? In the libraries folder, most of the time I'm putting things like external libraries, things that I'm getting from GitHub, things that are, for example, a library that is specialized to create a window. Okay, GLFW, for example. If I will take GLFW from the internet, from GitHub, I will place it in the libraries folder. If I will take some library that I did myself and it is on GitHub, on our GitHub page, I'll place it in the modules. And if it's just some code specific to the game that I'm kind of trying to create, I'll put it in the code. Why the modules? Okay, for the libraries makes sense, but why the modules? Kind of the project that I'm trying to create here, the engine, the framework, how you want to call it. The framework that I'm trying to create, it will be split in modules. We'll have a module for animation, one for resources, one for the navigation, one for graphics, one for platforms. So why we are putting them into the modules? Because I want to create these modules and I want to put them publicly on GitHub, of course, on our GitHub page. And the whole part with it, I want to create them in such a way that you can use them differently. So for example, if you want to use OpenGL and you want to use our graphics module, but you don't want to use the platforms module, so you don't want to use the solution I provided for creating the window, you can use GLFW or SDL, but still can use the graphics modules and all the other modules. So the whole idea is to have each module independently and to not kind of depend on other modules or external dependency. We will use just C++ and standard library in each of the modules. Okay, so for the main CMake file, the root CMake file, this is kind of almost all the time what I'm used to do. For the modules, of course, we need first to go on our GitHub page. The link will be it's in the description of the channel. For the platform framework, you'll have the link in the description of the video. And the whole idea, we need here to add some common, some three modules. So one of the module will be, for example, the commons module. The commons module right now doesn't have any code, but in the future will have things like mathematics and all that stuff, or any other common thing that it's across the whole project. So how do we add a module? Git submodule add the link to it. So if you want to use a module on your site as we develop, it's not a problem. Those are on GitHub, free to use. You can contribute to them if you know and you want to write C++ code. I will happily accept PRs and all that stuff. So we add the submodule. Of course, the folder needs to be modules, and because this is the common, we will name it commons. Okay, that simple. Another one that I want to use, it will be git submodule add. Okay, and this will be the graphics one, the place where we will put, for example, OpenGL, things related to the OpenGL especially. Later on, we will do things that are kind of very coupled with Vulkan, but in the beginning, just OpenGL. In the commons, like I said, we'll put mathematics and all that stuff. Okay, and last, it will be git submodule add, and we'll use modules platforms. Okay, so in the platforms, we'll have things like a window system, input, window events, and things like this. We will start with Windows, and later on, at some point, as we develop our secret game, let's call it like this, we will go to Linux and maybe macOS. Why not? So what we are doing here, add subdirectory commons, add subdirectory graphics, and add subdirectory platforms. Now we might, for example, I will just for a second enable this option in order to reload the CMake automatically. So now it will say that neither one of the modules doesn't have a CMake. So this is true. Let's add a CMake file in each of them. We will not add any code so far. Now we just want to make the, let's say, the basic structure of the project first. So for the modules, like you saw, this is what it. If we will add some external library at some point, we will add in the libraries here, we will kind of copy the folder and the same add subdirectory with the name of that library. Okay. In the code, things are kind of simple. Most of the time, I'm having something like this game, or it can be something like game engine, for example, right? Or game editor, game tools, whatever the structure I want to create. First, in here, we will need to add the subdirectory game. If, for example, in the game engine, we would add a CMake here, we need to include it, of course. In the game, kind of very simple. Project, game. I will use these languages, C++ here. I know we defined a project also here. This is the root project, the root name, okay? When I'm declaring here another project, it will kind of refer to whatever it's in this folder, okay? So with this name game, I will be able to refer to it later on, but just with whatever it's inside this folder, okay? For the things outside this folder, we will use this name, okay? CMake knows how to do these connections and all that stuff. So in here, we are having the project. We will call add executable. We will use the name game, the same as for the project. And later on, we will add a new folder here called core. The core needs also a CMake file. In here, what remains for us, add subdirectory core. Now, into the core. In here, we will add a source file called main. And of course, into the main function, we will use something like auto main int, and we will return 0 at the end. I will continue with this later. So now here inside, what we need to do, target, sources, project name. Of course, it will refer to this project name with the game. Project name, private, main CPP. Now, if we are kind of reloading the solution, the CMake solution, we kind of get this. So now, if we want, for example, give me just a few seconds. I want to kind of open some function. So now, if we are running, everything is okay. Another thing that I like to use most of the time, I'm going like in here in CLion, but these options are also available in Visual Studio and any other program that uses CMake. I want to specify to use Visual Studio 17 compiler, very important. I want my output to be CMake debug, and I will expand the CMake options to with these two new options, the CMake routine output directory debug path. This will tell us that, hey, output the final executable into this build folder. And what I want to specify also is to use the standard for the C++, starting with the 23 version. Okay, and now if I'm kind of running again, of course, I'm getting an error, right? That's quite not okay most of the time to get an error. But if we are running again, we don't have an error. We kind of finish the execute with 0. Now, in the build, this is where the executable stays. We can delete this CMake build debug. We keep it short with the CMake. So this is where in the CMake folder, this is where the CMake compilation will output the project. If you are exploring this folder out of curiosity, you'll see that is a Visual Studio solution here, and this is what CMake does most of the time. It's kind of just helps you to create solution specifics to platforms. So this is kind of the main structure of the project. The code folder with the game or the game engine. We have the libraries, we have the modules, things where we will add the code as we progress with the development, the resources where we will add things, the projects, the platforms framework mostly. This project, it's kind of short. It will not be that complex. In the graphics, we'll see more complex things. If you didn't have the chance to subscribe, this is your chance. Later on, as we kind of take the game engine to some progress, we will start and we will do some game development where we will work on a 2D game, okay, and it will be developed live on stream. Okay, I want to share the whole experience on creating a game, and I want to share with you the whole experience of writing a game framework, a game engine, how you want to call it. Okay, so this is it for today. Thanks for watching. We don't have some fancy things yet. In the next video, we will work on the window. We will have a window on the screen. But this is it for it now. Like I said, if you didn't have the chance to subscribe, now it's your chance. Like the video if you like it. And don't forget to drop a comment if you have any suggestion or feedback. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Have a nice day.